My name is Peter Delbridge. I'm the newly appointed assistant professor of clarinet here at the University of Florida. So I'm stepping into the shoes of the mighty Mitchell Estrin. And I must say it is a real honor and a privilege to be doing so. But it's also a true joy for me to take the mantle of instructing this incredibly talented group of students. And I think the performances you saw of Ashley Klein and Katie Collins just demonstrates the amazing talent and hard work and passion that is, that the studio is really, a hallmark of. So just a little round of applause, please, for Ashley Klein and Katie Collins. Although I am a new face, at least in this role, I actually was a student here. I did my graduate work here, my master's here in 2004 to 2006. And that was really when perhaps the clarinet choir here really took off. Mitch Estrin had come here, I believe, in 1999. And so when I came, it was actually just when I graduated of undergrad. And so he had been here for, I guess like 5 years and had really developed the culture of the clarinet choir here at the University of Florida. And one of the things he did during that time that I was really fortunate to be a part of was he started to produce and release professionally recorded and produced clarinet choir albums, what used to be known as CDs, compact discs. And I think he made 4 of them total. But I was privileged to be a part of that very first one that was called Wind in the Reeds. And it was about 20 years ago. I think that album came out in 2006. But if my memory serves, we recorded that in the Phillips Center in the summer of 2005. I think it corresponded with when the Wind Symphony went over to Singapore and Hong Kong. It was an amazing time. It was an amazing time for me to be a student here, and was really influential. But so I thought it would be fitting for this concert, for my inaugural concert here, to do some of the works that were featured on that album, including the one we're going to hear right now, Wind in the Reeds by Gordon Jacob, which sort of is where that album gets the title from. And we're going to close with Paul Richards' Butterfly Coughs in Africa, which I'll talk more about later. What's also maybe interesting or worth noting about those two pieces is they are original compositions for clarinet choir. Another real legacy that Mitchell Estrin had with this institution and with the choir was commissioning works, encouraging composers to write works, and also encouraging arrangers to arrange works for the clarinet choir. But with most ensembles that are of one instrument, clarinet choir, flute choir, saxophone ensemble, these things, the bulk of the repertoire tends to be arrangements of standard works. And you will hear one of those also. I figure we're close enough to the Halloween season that it's maybe not totally inappropriate to throw in kind of a Halloween classic, Night on Bald Mountain, which is, of course, an orchestral work that is wonderfully arranged for this ensemble. But I think it's especially important to note that that 2/3 of this program are pieces originally written for this ensemble. And I think you'll hear in these works that is totally an ensemble worthy of originally compositions, that I'm just super proud to now be sort of part of the legacy of perpetuating compositions, arrangements, and everything for the clarinet choir. So without further ado, we're going to play Wind in the Reeds, a 4-movement work for clarinet choir by Gordon Jacob. Thank you so much. I'm now going to call to the podium Harley Christ, a former studio member, I guess still kind of current, but also working on her master's in band conducting. So I'm going to invite her to come up and conduct, and I'm going to play. Do you want to talk about? Well, we have to say much. So this is one of these sort of classic choir arrangements of the famous orchestral piece Night on the Mountain. If the name doesn't sound familiar, if you've ever seen Fantasia, it was one of the works that was featured on that original Fantasia. Very evocative work, and it's often associated with Halloween. And so I figured we're close enough to the holiday time. We're pre-Thanksgiving, so we can still fit in one sort of holiday-esque work that fits into that Halloween mold. So here's Chris conducting Night on Bald Mountain. out tonight's concert, I just wanted to say that we're going to have some light refreshments outside, so please stick around. I actually told you guys that. We have some food and drinks out there after the concert. You guys have heard it for sure. And so yeah, please stick around, come and chat and talk with the choir and myself. We're going to close out this concert with the work Butterfly Coughs in Africa by one of our very own composition faculty, Dr. Paul Richards. As I mentioned, I was in the Clarinet studio at the time that we recorded the album Wind in the Reeds, and this was a work on that. And probably this piece in particular was my introduction to just the very idea that you could have a serious composition written for clarinet choir, a real masterwork for a clarinet choir. It might sound like an oxymoron or a dubious distinction, but in no way is untrue of this work. It is a real serious, genuinely authentic, fantastic piece. I fell in love with it when I got to perform it and then record it. And so, because it's also just about, I think Dr. Richards published this in 2004. Once again, we kind of recorded it in 2005, that one released it in 2006. So we're just gonna go ahead and call this the 20th anniversary of this work. And I think it's a really important one to kind of keep on doing over and over again because it is such a magnificent work for clarinet choir. I think a really fitting end to this concert. So I hope you all enjoy Dr. Richards' A Butterfly Coughs in Africa. Thank you so much all for coming this evening, and please stick around afterwards for light refreshments.